What's up, fellow gamers? Phreak here, recently
Was it
announced
this one?
design lead of the Summoners Rift Team live pod, here to talk about the stuff we've been hard at work on that has maybe already seen the light of day in the PBE for patch 13.20. Of course, point 19 already went live. We've still got a week's worth of development left on point 20 before we lock this one, but it is the post-Worlds patch, and so systems changes we have been working on that we deemed were too disruptive for Worlds were held back until this patch, and so they're shipping soon. We're going to do some fine-tuning still. Not all numbers are final. In fact, not include any numbers here in this sort of preview here, but here to talk about specifically the big systems changes we have coming into the patch. Let's talk about what we got going on. First is a set of anti-snowball measurements. So this is a project that I have had some level of oversight on, but is not my individual contribution, but I can talk to you about high-level goals and why we're doing what we're doing here. Overall, snowballiness in League of Legends is at one of the highest points it's ever been. More or less.
Really? I actually didn't realize this. I remember the last time snowballing was extremely high was right before the health changes to every single champ. They did durability patch, and somehow a year later, we're back at the point where snowballing is at the highest. I would like to know why he thinks snowballing is at the highest point. I would like to know that. But I mean, this stat is way easier to say than impact, I guess.
Measured by can we predict who's going to win the game?
Okay. It's now he's explaining.
X minutes into the game, based on measuring things like Drake leads or gold leads and kill leads and whatever else, a whole bunch of data says, can we predict the winner of the game with high accuracy? We are at one of the highest points in recent history for we can predict a lot of games as probably over by 15 minutes, again, at a very, very high frequency, higher than before, which means essentially.
Okay. Does that mean the system got better? Or does that mean the actual game is over? You know what I mean? Maybe they take more things into consideration now. Maybe they take more objectives into consideration now. Like this is also, you can't tell. Did their measurements get better, or did actually the snowballing get worse? This is so hard to say. Like it is the same criteria. I cannot believe that. I cannot believe that they haven't tried to predict better in before 5 years, and now they will probably use AIs now.
Essentially, the game is at one of its snowballiest states. We know that high elo games especially are more snowbally than low elo games. Certainly, if you're better at macro, you're going to throw your leads less obviously, so this is going to be somewhat expected even. But it is higher than our tastes, and so we're looking for ways to lower the amount of snowballing in League of Legends as the primary consideration for this section of work. As some other considerations here, individual snowballing is, I would say, sacred to League of Legends. So much of why the game is fun is the 1 in 10 games where you pop off, you're the superstar, and you are basically 1v9. That happening once in a while is good for League of Legends. That is what makes the game so fun. Is that once in a while.
That's some dark shit, actually, kind of. So you're losing and rotting 9 games, but you have one high that's really, really high, so you get addicted. This is basically what he's fucking saying. Holy shit. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but...
While pop off where you are the all-star, you are winning. Less exciting is when your good performances get immediately spread out to the rest of your team, and instead of you being up 1,000 gold and being...
That's not what he's saying. That's what he's saying. That is actually exactly what he is saying. He is saying people play the game because they have 1 in 10 games where they pop off, right? They get fun. They have fun in that one game. But they will keep playing to chase that high. It's the same thing.
And feeling awesome if you win all your 1v1s. It's, well, we all got 200 gold, and so we're all subtly winning our lanes, and just... In terms of the shape of snowballing, ideally it's more individualistic, it's more about you, and less about sort of acquiring...
When asking little Kiburden, I mean, that's not no, but that, it would be the same argument. I agree. It would be the same argument, actually.
Now, I do think the idea of acquiring victory points, if you're not a big board game fan, this is like... How do I want to describe it? Basically where, hey, actually, it's really obvious. Take almost any conventional sport, like tennis or football or basketball or whatever, and scoring points has no intrinsic value. You feel good that you scored the point, congratulations, but it has no intrinsic value until the game ends, and...
Okay, I will just do it for the people that don't understand it, because I don't know. There's another guy arguing. Okay, so this is your dopamine levels. Okay, D, and this is the amount of games, right? G. Okay, so let's say in 10 games, right, your dopamine levels look like this. Right, they go up and down, up and down. It's like sometimes you have a nice game or like an even boring game, sometimes it's a boring game, and then once in a while you fucking pop off. You have a big fat cock pop-off. Because you're completely 1v9 and you have 20 kills, you stomp everyone. Your dopamine levels are extremely high, right? Way higher than the other ones. But after it goes down, you want to have that again. Because it was so fun, you had really high dopamine. You want to have that again. That's why you get addicted. That's why you do this thing over and over and over and over again until you have it again. Right? That's what he just said.
then the most points wins. A
and which is of course it's how it is. Yes, it has all the games work like this. Games always work like
this. I think has value in League of Legends because it allows you to say, here's something that we as a team want to play for. Here's a reason to group up. Here's a reason to have teamwork. But it doesn't matter in the moment, but it matters at the end of the day. Oh, actually, you know what? Those dragons we got, yeah, they mattered now. And so that sort of shape, lightly, which is kind of what we're approaching here, is my mental framework of actually a pretty good model for individual power versus team power.
It's not a bad thing. I mean, I think you could argue that it's a morally bad thing. But for sure, this will make the game be played more.
You can kind of score points, and you can make yourself powerful, and those eventually converge, at the end of the day. I want to sort of bring up one more thing, which is I think that there is an extremely high value in having good pace.
Morally or ethically? Okay, I can't differentiate between morally and ethically. Probably ethically.
Game-ending objectives, because they don't exist. This means essentially if you're able.
Isn't it the same with every game? Yes, for sure. Yes, for sure. I mean, some games work like this more, and some games work like this less. Right? Let's say if snowballing would be less, you would have, the curve wouldn't look like. The curve wouldn't have a big fat penis. It would have a small penis, and you would get less addicted because the difference between like a fine game and a very good game isn't that high. Very, very different if your dopamine penis is very higher.
To stack wave clear, you can stall the game out forever and then just play late game scaling, and not interacting is the best way to play the game. If the game actually has frequent touch points that matter, then cool, you get a more action-packed game, you get an action-oriented game, you get one where interactions matter. I'm going to take another leap here, but I do think this is a fair leap to make, which is comparing professional League of Legends from around 2013 to 2017, and then the years after that. Basically, when we stopped the LCK era and entered the LPL era, was to me when League got to the point where early objectives mattered enough that you couldn't just have control of the lanes and slowly win a 3-kill to 0 game, and then it's like, well, we secured the objective for Baron, and so now we kind of slowly end the game from here. And optimized play was you don't have to interact, you just slowly acquire your advantages, and you just win the game automatically because you've just controlled vision too well. Again, I'm sort of moving in a different topic slightly, but whereas current hyper-optimized best players in the world of League of Legends play a very aggressive, active game where there are constant touch points where your interactions matter because the objectives matter, because they're going to progress you toward victory. And there is a important, delicate balance here, where you need these touch points to matter so that you can have an action-oriented game. I think it's important that the high-level strategic macro game is tweaked towards aggression. But so that the game that we all play at home, you don't have to convince people at home to go take fights because fighting is fun in League of Legends. And so you have to kind of balance those things where optimized play will trend toward non-aggression and unoptimized play trends toward people fighting because it's fun. And you have to somehow like counteract the snowballing with the fact that it is correct for League of Legends to have frequent touch points where you either show up or you want to start losing. And that's tough. To get that balance right is hard, but that is essentially part of the underpinning of what's going on here with anti-snowballing changes. So anyway, trying to lower the degree to which the game is overall snowballing in modern League of Legends. So first tactic here is a reshape the drakes. This is essentially most elemental drakes are being nerfed by about.
Okay, honestly, I like this. But he's basically saying, right, he doesn't want PvE to automatically win the game. So he's nerfing dragons. Okay, if Riot wants that, okay, I understand.
40% in terms of the amount of bonus stats they get. But the
I can support that.
Buffed by a pretty small amount, usually about 10 to 15%. I would say that's still probably on the whole nerfs Dragon Soul.
Because it's for sure more fun to play, I guess,
you
right?
You just have 4 Drake stacks. And so if each 4 of those Drake stacks is nerfed, and you're getting like, I don't know, 6% less total AD, that's a significant amount of power lost when you have your Infernal Dragon Soul that has 3 Infernal Bricks as part of it. Meanwhile, the Dragon Soul itself does slightly more damage, but you still have 6% less total AD, so guess what? I think the tuning right now is that the functional power of a team with Dragon Soul is the exact same as it is currently on live, like the full total amount of power from killing 4 dragons, but every step before that is about 35% weaker. And so one thing that certainly is true is that Dragon is an incredibly important objective in League of Legends, and very frequently, the team that wins the bot side and gets to stack dragons is the team that wins League of Legends. And if you get all the way to Dragon Soul, that will be about as true as it is currently in League of Legends, but before that point, it is about 30% less true than currently in League of Legends, and so the overall value of playing toward bot lane is a bit lower. The overall value of that first early kill or that first early team fight that turned on the first dragon, that's less valuable as well. All the individual snowballing of getting a double kill or killing a turret or all these things, that's still there, that's still in your hands. Congratulations, you're double killed Draven. Nothing has changed about this. It's the, oh yeah, I won this double kill in bot lane, Nunu came over, we killed a Drake, and now our top lane Renekton got 7 more attack damage. Right. It's what's going in this direction a little bit. It is a nudge towards continue to have dragons be important in a highly coordinated environment, and that if you just stall and do nothing, the enemy team will, in a relatively small amount of time, get a large objective advantage that will choke you out or require you to act because soul is so important, but lower the degree to which individual fights natively snowball the game state, not snowball you individually. Second change is very similar to Rift Herald. This is specifically the first Rift Herald is worth less gold. Much like the value of Drakes have been nerfed, the value of the first Rift Herald has been nerfed as well. Second Rift Herald, to my understanding, is unchanged here. Second Rift Herald is not all that valuable, and so the incremental gain, right? Second Herald has full value. The Herald charge is as good as before. The Herald itself is as good as before, but relative to that Rift Herald, individual Drakes are worse. First Herald is worse. So by Sort of Osmosis, well, the second Rift Herald is, I guess, by comparison, a slightly better objective relative to other objectives, which I think is fine. Second Herald is far from being too strong. But First Herald, a little bit less gold, a little bit less value. Since it is often shared among everyone getting it, it's a little bit less individual snowballing anyway. Next thing is early death timers are getting shortened. This is level 1 death timers are unchanged, level 10 death timers are unchanged. Between level 2 to level 9, it is about 2 to 6 seconds based on the level, not linear, but just sort of mix and match between 2 and 6 seconds. Shorter death timer for champions who die in the early game. This essentially says that if you do get put behind, again, the Darius or Renekton or Kalista or whomever gets that kill still gets full value, still gets plenty of gold, still gets plenty going on, but on the other side, you are put out of the game a bit less. In terms of the amount of the game snowballs, you get crushed a bit less, your opponent is still pretty much full power. This, of course, does mean there's going to be points in time where, you got back in time to stop the lane freeze or to stop the push or something, right? This, of course, does have some impact because you're back on the map 2 seconds sooner, and so this has some impact in how the lanes interact. Yep, that's going to be true. The minion wave is going to interact a little bit differently because you're there to catch it in time. But I think pretty strongly the gains outweigh the cons, which is you got first blood, you got the kill, congratulations, you're more powerful, go spend your gold, go be more powerful, go snowball. And for the most part, nothing changes here. We've been playtesting these exact changes for over a month, and we're comfortable with these numbers. Again, it will have a non-zero impact in how the wave management is going to happen after the kill. Yes, this is going to be the case, but again, it's no faster than it is at level 1, and anyway, onwards from there. So this is, you get kicked out of the game less severely when you are behind, but you don't really get any worse to a meaningful degree when you're ahead. A little bit less snowballing without getting rid of power from the individual who's getting the kill.
This is, I mean, he is wrong. It is a nerf because he's trying to paint it beautiful, but of course it is a nerf to killing. Like, killing people will be worse now than before, which is okay. If you want to have that, it's okay. I think it's fine to have that. It's also, I guess, a jungle kind of nerf, at least jungle, like kill playstyle jungle nerf. For sure.
And trying to level up themselves. Next thing, though, this actually will hurt the winning player, which is the value of plates is getting dropped. Right now, the tuning is from 175 to 125. The numbers are negotiable, of course, but this is currently saying that, hey, the
it
total
will make
value,
the game
this
slower.
is really aimed at top lane and how aggressively top lane kind of just ends.
I mean, maybe, because it will make games a little bit more balanced, but I don't think it will matter that much.
That determine who's Rift Herald, it's the junglers and everyone else rolling up to that objective, and then more often than not, it feels like that Herald is summoned top lane, and it's hopping, and you go like, wait a second, the enemy top laner got a bunch of gold because the jungler and the mid laner showed up, and then they got given more gold because the Herald charged the plates, and they got more gold from my turret going down, and where's my 1v1 agency? Where's my ability to interact with my opponent 1v1? And so this somewhat double dips in the...
Yeah, it's just 2-3 seconds.
It sort of
it's not going to be mattering
overall says,
too much.
Look, plates almost always by nature are going to be a little bit diffuse. Rift Herald, again, the gold is almost always shared with 2 to 3 or more champions, and the plates are usually shared among 2 or 3 champions as well. Also, this ends up being a specific jungle nerf because the jungler almost always is involved in the Herald kill, and the jungler almost literally always is the one getting at least half the plate gold from the Herald charge, because the Herald charge is guaranteed to give the gold to the Herald summoner, and then it might share it among everyone else who's around it. So this also has some individual jungle nerfs specifically as collateral, which we're more than comfortable with. Jungler is an overpowered role, and again feeds into Herald. So this does, nerf the value of Herald pretty significantly, though the turret going down, first turret gold, the total baseline turret gold is 500, all that of course unchanged, so, and the damage of Herald itself, so all those things are kind of unchanged of the value of Herald, but it's the gold value killing Herald and the gold value getting the plates down with the Herald charge. All these things are getting diminished, so of course it does lower the value of that objective. And then I think the last thing, the anti-snowball, no, we got one more, is a push toward runes. So this does actually start moving towards individual snowballing, but essentially this is a direction that we are going towards pretty heavily here on the Summoners Rift team. I believe we're going to be doing it pretty well with items. We're going to be doing a second rune sweep as well in the 14.1 patch, but we're doing a light tap here, but it's largely saying, okay, look, there are too many attack damage and ability power ratios outside of your kit currently in League of Legends. And so the push here with runes is to essentially floor the attack damage and ability power ratios in the rune system in current League of Legends. There's very, very few runes with ratios that aren't keystones. Those are mostly keystone changes, but things like Mana Flow Band and Demolish are certainly, we have eyes on as possible examples. I don't know 100% the exact change list here. It could be Mana Flow Band, not Mana Flow Band, sorry, but Nullified Orb. Those rarely picked, to be clear. It's like, no, as a stance, right? Gold scaling is going to go down in the rune system, and the idea being that like runes are going to have more baseline value if you don't scale, or you don't scale it with gold, but overall the gold scaling of champs is going down. I think in general, most of the feels of I'm gaining gold and feeling good is going to be intrinsically kit-based, and I think compared to other sources, you will feel rune snowballing less, although this is, to be clear, some individual anti-snowballing here, because runes are individual and they're off your individual gold gain. So there was a little bit of anti-individual snowballing here, but it's overall saying, look, again, snowballingness is too high. Part of what has led to our high rate of snowballingness was actually a set of rune changes back in 12.14, which nerfed a bunch of defensive runes, a bunch of offensive ones that actually had a very meaningful, measurable spike in snowballingness of League of Legends games, and this is saying, okay, we're going to walk back a lot of the gold scaling of runes here. The intent initially was to mostly compensate these runes in terms of base values. The initial goal, like for version 1, was to say, okay, at around one item, like I'm level 8, 9, 10, maybe 11, I've got Mythic and a Doran's Ring, or, Mystic and Doran's whatever, and, it'll be roughly the same power level here, but then, of course, as I get more gold per level as time goes on, it's going to fall off. And so it'll be like equal-ish, 1, 2, 3, maybe a bit better, 4, 5, 6, equal-ish again, 8, 9, 10, and then, downwards from there. The numbers we ended up going for are actually just more of a flat nerf, that up through about 3 items, it's more like 10% less throughput on the rune. Again, very general broad strokes here, but then if you go towards 4 or 5 items, it's more like 15 to 20% less output on the rune, which I think is totally reasonable. Again, I don't think these things need to scale so hard and bold. I think runes having a reliable level base output is reasonable. I've seen some people in the PvE Reddit thread say it's a durability update 2.0. I think this is more durability update like 1.3 or something, where like...
Wait, so they're basically making everyone deal less damage later on. Okay. I didn't understand his point. I mean, yeah, he's just like, he's saying runes are scaling too well, and they want to nerf runes late game. Which is okay. So yeah, it is another durability patch, kind of. Yeah. Basically. If everyone is dealing less damage, it's a durability patch.
We are meaningfully lowering the amount of damage because we are functionally flat nerfing these runes. Like, this is true. We're taking a swing at basically all the damage keystones. But then there is meant to be a larger damage focus sweep for the beginning of the year. And so when it's time for that, we'll talk about it then. But again, a damage sweep here, a snowballing sweep here that is going to affect rune output and is going to affect snowballing and is going to affect the damage in the game. And I think, again, directionally quite good because even though we like technically slightly scope correct the rune changes, they're directionally what we want, and so it's fine. Next thing is a Baron help. The funny thing is we had intended to make this change earlier on in the year, and then just...
Oh, that's a good change.
It's just been sitting kind of waiting to be released. We're doing it now finally, which is increase the amount of health that Baron has. Some of this is certainly items have gotten more and more efficient over time with things like mythic passives. Also just players get better at the games, get better at less hitting, they get better at earning gold. And in the current state of the game, Baron is too frail for the value of the objective, and so we're increasing Baron's health. This is of course going to be later on in the game, 20 minutes plus, of course, because it has to spawn. But the idea is that it is a little bit too easy for a team kind of nowhere to just go and grab Baron, and suddenly, wow, the game has just skyrocketed in terms of its progression. And so now it's going to...
I agree, Baron was fucking free. That's good.
Sort of require more effort to set up and claim Baron. It'll certainly have a measurable impact in game results, but it's going to slow down how quickly Baron's getting killed. We can actually measure, like, how, on average, when is the first Baron killed in the game, and that time keeps going down, year by year, and so bringing it back up a little bit because Baron is pretty frequently actually dying at like 20 minutes now. So overall, sort of broad level of goals on anti-snowballing changes, I think it's going to be really cool, and again, hoping to ship this in 13.20. All these sort of levers have been checked in, and I think are really cool stuff. So next thing going on here is a big jungle agency nerf. We'll get this off the screen real quick, and there, great. So this is a project that I helmed the entire time, basically. I've had this for a month and a half, 2 months, around here. I'm still working on it, and there's actually a lot of essentially sub goals here. So the prior context that's needed is jungle is by far, and it's not close, the strongest role in the game. Jungle has room to be just strictly nerfed, and by a lot, by an incredibly large amount. Jungle is really, 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 really overpowered. They're essentially the main characters of the game. I don't think I can stress hard enough just like how incredibly overly strong jungle is. Anyway, let's move forward.
Why? Okay. Please explain it now. Please explain it. Why? Please don't say shit like that and not explain it.
So the other major consideration here is that jungle historically has been a very unpopular role. That anytime a role gets too unpopular...
Please! No emotions! I want stats!
The rate of players, like, imagine you're just going to play some solo queue games, and it's like, oh, actually, a large number of the time, my jungler is going to be auto-filled instead of being a jungle main. I'm really, really likely to lose. And so in terms of providing the highest game quality, there can be a legit...
Okay, so we have one example, right? If auto-filled jungler performs less well than an auto-filled laner. But if that is the explanation, I'm gonna lose it.
Legitimate argument to actually buffing jungle to raise the jungle main rate, because that, jungle mains either come back to playing jungle, or, people become jungle mains and get good at the role. But it's like, actually, if we lower...
Also, like, an argument you could make against that is... Yes, jungling is just not like laning, right? If a top laner is getting filled to mid lane or to AD, he still has to last hit, he still has to do shit, right? The same as he's doing on top lane, he still has to slow push, he still has to freeze. Sometimes, he has to take no one to take turret, he knows no one to base. And the same argument goes for jungle, right? So you would maybe need to compare a jungler being on roll. How is the jungler performing off roll compared to a laner performing in jungle? This is, I think, what you need to look at. This was just be an argument. I think we don't have enough information from him to find out why he's thinking that, because I really would like to know.
Or the number of times that a jungler is autofilled, even though the role is strictly more powerful, now the jungle diff is smaller because you're not autofill against, right? It's not like, this roll's at an 8 against an autofill, well, the game just ends. Now the roll's at a 9, not against an autofill, now it's a fair game. The jungle's overpowered, but at least the game is fair. And so there's I think a reasonable argument for, there's some times where you can buff a strong role for game health reasons. Our metrics right now indicate that jungle, essentially, we can eat some level.
Metrics? Which metrics? Give me the metrics.
Level of people deciding that jungle's not for them anymore because it's the harder.
It's 1.5 hours long. Tell us the metrics.
Or less overpowered or whatever. But this is the kind of thing that...
I think the main stat they have for this is that MMR difference in jungle matters. Is that what they use? They use average elo of junglers. But that can also be fucking faulty. More people are likely to play jungle once they have already played the game a little bit. Just
you get to plug them in, right? It's a little bit of something. It doesn't mean a ton, but it's there. It's a small change to Smite. Okay, great. The bigger changes are that PvP Smite is hard capped at 40 damage. So here's the thing. Junglers, as I said, are kind of the main characters of League of Legends because they are essentially full power PvP combat. If you track junglers' kills and assists, they are relatively close but slightly higher than any other role in the game in terms of like kills and assists by minute. It's actually not that much higher than other roles, by the way. It's not extreme, but it's like, junglers on average have slightly more PvP combat than other roles do. It's really getting kills and whatnot, so clearly they're successful in PvP. And of course, that's early game for each might even evolve, so whatever. Okay, fine. But if you look at their sort of game agency by time, it's actually not really, really absurd. 1 through 6.
So basically, saying junglers are there for fights, but like damage dealt or something like that, it's not that much.
It's actually into the mid game where better the value of better jungler wins is actually the highest is mid game through late game. And you get really, really late individually, it doesn't matter because everything else means more. It's just team coordination. But for like the entire mid game, jungle is the clear #1 role, and it's actually not the case for like minutes 4, 5, 6. Like of course their ganks matter, but like so does everyone else. So it's actually not a huge thrust at nerfing the like level 3 through 5 jungle experience. It's actually aimed at mid game with these changes here. The aim is at nerfing mid to late game jungle, where they are consistently the #1 role in the game. Okay, anyway, so yes, Smite deals less damage to champions. Junglers are still the best role in the game at securing neutral objectives. Of course, they're not better than people at killing turrets, Rift Herald notwithstanding. Baron notwithstanding. Baron is a game ender as well. So all the neutrals actually do, for the most part, go back into killing like turrets, but clearly in modern League of Legends, neutral objectives are incredibly valuable, and junglers, above any other role in the game, are the main characters when it comes to killing these things. You basically can't Baron if your jungler's dead and theirs alive. You can kill mid lane turret when your AD carries dead and theirs alive. You can do almost anything in the game with a role mismatch, except epic monsters and junglers. That is the only thing where you're just not allowed to do it unless you have like exactly Cho'Gath on your team. You're not allowed to play with these objectives. So junglers are main characters, and they are just the best at some of the most important stuff in the game. Now, there's a potential rework to jungle where instead of last hitting Baron, it spawns a Skarner Spire you have to channel on, and last team standing claims the buff. I don't know, made up example where it's like, cool, Smite doesn't matter, last hitting doesn't matter, jungle doesn't matter, it's win the fight and then claim the like Twisted Tree Line altar or whatever. I'm not saying that's a good change, but I'm saying that like you don't have to do that level of change to make junglers not just the most important role in the game for epic objectives, right? So guess what? They're the main characters of epic objectives, which means this Smite that makes them the main character can do a lot less and still be an incredibly valuable button to press that's really, really important for these players and really, really important for these teams. So what Smite now does is it deals functionally cosmetic damage to champions. It deals 40 damage, and it has a moderate slow. Now, I think the fewer mechanics on a button, the better those mechanics can feel, right? Because there is a maximum power level we're allowed to give. And for example, junglers are way over here off the screen in terms of power level. So how can we lower power level while retaining some level of satisfaction? And it's like, well, you're still the main characters when it comes to Baron and Dragon. What is the minimum bar we can put damage on Smite? Because, hey, Smite has a 15-second cooldown and a, 90-second recharge. Ignite has 3 times that cooldown, and also doesn't slow. And Exhaust doesn't deal damage and isn't up nearly as often. And, like,
what the fuck is that comparison,
I don't want to get into, like, debating people on Twitter or whatever, but the point is, Smite already does a whole lot. It can do less champion damage and still be a completely good summoner spell that makes junglers the most important role in the game. So, Smite does less damage to champions. I don't want to dive into why we thought about getting rid of it on minions and whatnot. It's not that important. I'm going to try to get through the content that's actually in the patch. Next thing is avatar upgrades. What is another thing that only junglers have? Well, junglers have a unique pet that helps explain the rules of how jungling works to them. And at the end of the day, then also get some free stats for spending 500 gold. For skipping a Doran's Blade, they get this pet that gives them a fat shield, or a bunch of damage in a slow, or an absurd amount of movement speed, or tenacity and slow resist, or whatever. And it's like, wow, there is a lot of power here. Not only are junglers the main characters because they have unique control over epic objectives, they're also the main characters because for 500 gold, they get something that is way better than a Doran's Blade. Now, you have to wait until level 11-ish when you finish your jungle item, but wow, this is a whole lot of power to give you for a delayed...
I mean, that's a point. I mean, it scales, right? It's not instant power. The argument stands that you can argue that the 500 gold from Durans will generate you more money, all in all, as a laner, and make you stronger until that point. But I get what he's saying. Like, of course, the evolved jungle item is very broken. Yeah.
This doesn't need nearly as much power. I think there could be a version where it actually upgrades your Smite instead of giving you a passive buff. Allows you to say, let's bring Smite back to a summoner spell that feels good, but that's where all the power is locked behind. I think there's a reasonable version there. It is not one that I explored, but it allows you to say, my summoner spell feels like a real summoner spell. You can put all the power there, and you no longer have a passive buff. I think there's a version of that could work for sure. Regardless, again, not one I chased down. I did not think about creating 3 new spells. It was like, well, it's going to be a simple balance change to avatar upgrades. As part of a concerted effort to have free tenacity in fewer places, Green Smite no longer has tenacity and slow resist. The shield is about 5% stronger, and so you can get Red Smite for a burn and a slow on landing a spell or an attack. You can grab Green Smite for a reasonably strong shield that will block about 1 full spell. It's basically a free hex drinker. Or you can grab.
But actually, honestly, that's like that. Green Smite is gonna be the most broken. I mean, the tenacity was sweet, but not like
probably the hardest.
The shield is the broken part.
Red Smite doesn't feel very used, so it didn't get nerfed. Although we can at some point down the line. One thing I want to point out actually is a small change, which is that Smite is now going to count as proc damage, which means it will not trigger things like Comet. It will not trigger Leandries. It will not trigger Demonic Embrace, and it also will no longer trigger Red Smite, as Red Smite, the pet, is going to require landing an attack or spell, which is the Night Harvester thing. And this is meant to be actually a very small buff to junglers, because currently, if you smite somebody, you have a 2-second long slow on smite itself, which is essentially just fully overlaps with your, I think it's 3-second long decaying slow from red smite. And now it's like you can just smite for the slow, use the slow, then land a spell later, instead of like being required to hold your smite. You must land a spell or an attack first to land, you know, your red burn, then wait 3 seconds, then smite. It's like you can just smite at the start and not overlap.
It is on 1.5. 1.25.
So that is a functional buff. Of course, there's going to be a case where it's like, I would have gotten a kill if only smite would have
applied
red.
It's huge. It's useless.
Red pet, Scourge Claw. But overall, I think better for the game to say, much like every other summon spell in the game, the damage, like Ignite basically is my example here, it deals proc damage like Ignite does. It doesn't trigger Leandries or Rylays, because Ignite doesn't, and it's going to work more like this ability, and it also allows us to free up and say, well, Scorch Claw, you can now have a little more agency over putting it down, and not having it just overlap it slow with Smite, which I think was a very, very common thing to have happen. So the other thing with the Avatar upgrades is we're getting rid of the rule where you no longer take 20% less damage if you have 20% less damage from epic monsters if you have 2 teammates nearby. If you want, right, so if you are soloing Baron, nothing is different. If you are duoing Dragon, nothing is different. If you are 3-manning objective, why does a jungler need to be the main character where they are uniquely going to tank this objective for your team? Let someone else do it. If you have an Ornn, they can do it. The jungler does not need to be the...
Okay, but this one, I really dislike. I think this was really nice because team play was rewarded. So if you were able to like rotate to the dragon as 3 people, it was very nice. But if you did solo dragon, you got one shot by dragon, right? Yeah, team play was promoted, which I think is a good thing, and now it's just gone.
The main character for tanking Baron. It's a thing that I understand very high level players understand and can play around. This is the kind of thing that the vast majority of players don't even know exists. And by the way, the Q health problem for jungle, much like with bot lane, is primarily a low elo problem. And in high elo, there's more than enough junglers and also more than enough AD carries. It's a low elo, like role appreciability thing. And so anytime we can get rid of an esoteric rule that is power, but is impossible for a silver player to appreciate, that is free real estate for ripping out some power that, like, yes, if you're a challenger jungler, you probably use this upgrade. I am aware. Your role is really overpowered. You have to take an L somewhere. And so this removes a small optimization that most players didn't know about that is some power off and is a very reasonable thing to get rid of. So if you have 2 nearby teammates, you will get 20% less damage from epic monsters. Next line is a relatively small touch to camp health. So this will not affect your first clear. This will not affect relatively mid-game clear. So level 1 and / level 2 camps. So if you're doing a 1v0 game in practice tool and you kill blue buff before Gromp spawns, Gromp will spawn at level 2 because you're level 2. Level 2 camps are never changed. Level 2 camps are the same size level 1 camps.
Wait, what?
Relatively mid-game clear. So level 1 and / level 2 camps. So if you're doing a 1v0 game in practice tool,
okay, and then
kill blue buff over...
You kill blue buff over Gromp. Before Gromp spawns. Okay, but that's not a thing. Okay, yeah?
Gromp will spawn at level 2 because you're level 2. Level 2 camps are never changed. Level 2 camps are the same size level 1 camps. That's true across the entire game. That's unchanged here. There's no practical shenanigans. But the primary thing is so level 1 camps are unchanged. Your first clear, your camps don't have any different amount of health. 1 asterisk, we'll get to it in a little bit. Your camps have the same health, the same durability, the same everything. Camps have the same durability. So your first clear is untouched. 1 asterisk, we'll talk about it later. Your second clear, essentially the way it works right now is jungle camps. There's actually there's currently 3 different formulas used for how camps gain health with levels. The way camps work, by the way, non-epic camps, is when they spawn, they take the average level of champs in the game, and they say, oh, okay, the average champ is level 1, I'm level 1. The average champ is level 3, I'm level 3. The average champ is level 4, I'm level 4. And then there's basically a big data table that says, okay, if you're level 4, you should have 20% more health and 20% more attack damage, and your XP value should be 12% larger on baseline. And we can scale your gold, we can scale a bunch of stuff. We can scale your armor, we can scale your MR, all this kind of stuff. Okay. On present League of Legends, this is actually very chunky at very weird intervals. I have smoothed this out, Now it is on average a nerf to junglers. So your second clear, if you do like a full clear and a recall, buying an item, then doing a second clear, it doesn't really matter. They're going to respawn after your first clear the same time no matter what. But if you do a full clear and you come back to your jungle, the first 2 camps you interact will have, I believe it's 10% more health than they currently do on live.
Damn. What? That's a lot. Oh my god, that's a lot. I mean, 10% sounds like a lot.
And the second 2 camps will have the same health. So essentially, it's every even level. So camps level 4, 6, 8, and 10.
But will have even health?
2 camps you interact will have, I believe it's 10% more health than they currently do on live. And the second 2 camps will have the same health.
The second 2... Wait, what? The first 2 camps will have 10%, and the second 2 will have the same... Why? What?
I believe it's 10% more health than they currently do on live, and the second 2 camps will have the same health.
Thank you, Kurt Mania, Deck Shadow, thank you guys.
Level, so camps level 4, 6, 8, and 10 will have a bit more health than they currently do in live League of Legends. So instead of like having 120% health, have 130% health. Instead of having 140, they have 150. Instead of having 160, they have 170. All the way to 200% health at level 11, which is what they already have right now in League of Legends. About half of like your second and beyond.
I know he's talking about second clear, but have you ever tried to like? Did you see the second clears on my champs? They're fucking rough. Second clear is way harder than first clear, by the way, if you didn't notice. From all from all clears, I think the second clear is the hardest. Because then the camps have leveled up, they are stronger, and you don't have that big of item spikes that, yeah.
Clear will have about 8% more health, 7% more health on the camps. This will slow you down a little bit. What this actually does, we found in play the feedback, even with a very, very light
thank you, Hemer, for the sub.
Your second Raptors or second Gromp or whatever, just the fact that those had like 10% more health, 8% more health, actually encouraged you to take your first recall. It encouraged you to buy Bomby Cinder or buy some components, or just overall say, yeah, I'm going to buy these Longswords and Pickaxe or whatever. It had a meaningful enough impact when you have no other sources of damage yet to take that recall. And so it means that, like, if you want to gain golden experience, because the amount of golden XP out of your jungle hasn't changed at all, it's still full value. If you want to keep up on that train, you probably can't skip your first recall anymore, or you're going to be measurably slower.
Okay, but it's already like that right now, to be honest. It's already like that right now, but it's just going to be more.
And so this has like a decent amount of impact in saying, hey, actually, this is going to have an impact on you. This is going to matter. So then the other thing is after champion or camp level 11 on live, camps stop scaling their health. That is going to change next patch where they're going to scale 5% increased health per level for all non-buff camps. So they'll go from 200% health level 11, which is currently live, to...
Wow. Okay.
235% health, which is not a very large increase, at camp level 18. Now, camps never reach level 18 because that requires the support to also be close to level 18. This is never reached. A realistic late game camp level is like 14. And so that's, 215, 220%. That's 10% more health in live. You're not really going to feel it. It will be there, but it's like very slightly slowing you down in really, really late game clears because you're going to keep gaining damage. You're going to keep getting ability ranks. You're going to keep gaining gold. You're going to keep, increasing your pet damage, all these things.
But wait, doesn't that also mean that the jungle camps will give more XP? That's like a scaling jungle buff.
You're going to keep going up. The camps will very, very slightly into the late game keep going up with you. Because keep in mind, regular minion waves scale until like 50 minutes or something. Like minions scale and scale and scale, and they scale harder than camps do.
Yes.
And so giving them some light scaling, I think is more than reasonable to say, yeah, we're going to ask a little bit more of your time to earn gold late game. Now, again, not a lot. This is like a 10% health increase. But that is the change. Now, there is...
No, they don't level up.
The other thing I said, there was an asterisk, which is that...
camps level up until level 9. They don't level up further. So they don't give more XP than a level 9 camp. I think now the change is that he said until level 14. So they will have 5 more levels, which will give you more XP then.
Large Raptor...
I think,
I'm not sure. ...camps that has a really weird... health growth curve. So Large Raptor on live spikes really hard after your first clear and then slows down and meets all the other camps at like level 11. I have increased the base health of Large Raptor to have 100 more health, which means that for any single target jungler, you're not really losing any time here because you kind of had to wait for your pet to kill the small raptors anyway. And, taking 1 extra auto is basically not going to slow you down because that auto is going to have to be spent on a raptor that's going to die to like your pet damage regardless.
But that you lost? That's not true. Most of the junglers kill the small raptors AoE, and the big one, at the last. So if that one has 100 more HP, it will cost you more time to kill the whole camp.
This is what has relatively low impact, but for a champion like maybe a Mumu or Shyvana, where they have plenty of AoE, they actually will lose that full second on Big Raptor. But it also means that from clears 2 and onwards, by normalizing the health growth curve, Raptor basically just only in the first clear, Raptor has more health. But otherwise, basically no real change. The other minor thing is, while I was here, I noticed that there's other inconsistencies. So for example, this is medium Krug and small Krugs don't scale their health or their XP as well as other camps do on live. And so there's actually going to be slightly more experience in the Krug camp because when camp XP got increased a little while back, those two got missed. And so the XP value of Krugs is going up very slightly this patch. So it actually is technically more experience in the jungle, as long as your clear includes Krugs. It's a small degree is there, but also their health is going to go up as well. To be fair, medium Krug and small Krugs are trivial to kill in the first place, but technically I have more health. All right, next thing is clear health. So this is actually a stab at somewhat very lightly normalizing the amount of health you come out of the jungle. So one of the things I think is a really big main character syndrome is that right now in League of Legends, the way that monsters heal you is your pet heals you every second based on your pet's DPS. As long as it's in combat with monsters, your pet heals you every second for 70% of your pet's DPS. Okay, fine. That pet's DPS scales with attack damage, it scales with ability power, it scales with bonus health, and it scales really meekly with bonus armor and bonus MR. We'll start with the pet stuff because we're already talking about it. Okay, so the change about the pet is that the pet is still going to heal you for 70% of your pet's DPS, but the attack damage ratio is being nerfed, the AP ratio is being nerfed very, very, very lightly, and the armor and MR ratios are being buffed substantially. What this does is essentially a cloth armor per point of gold is now the same amount of damage per second for your pet as a ruby crystal. For those of you who buy longswords, this already gives you spell damage and auto attack damage. The AD junglers don't need to clear any faster.
Oh god!
And for the AP
Tank
junglers,
buffs.
the fact that you often have large amounts of downtime between spells, AP junglers cannot translate AP into clear speed as cleanly as an AD champion does because their auto attacks don't get better. So there is still a moderate AP ratio here, though of course it does still increase your spell damage, which means it's, per point of gold, not as good as health or armor MR. What this means though is that if you have to go first back at double cloth armor, the DPS of double cloth armor the value of those cloth armors has been doubled. Now, the end result, mathematically, is that one attack damage stat shard and one armor stat shard completely equalize each other out. There's functionally no change to Hecarim or Kha'Zix or whatever's first clear. If they're running one AD shard, one armor shard, there's basically no change. It's functionally unfeelable. Nothing is going to be different. What this does do is just means that a champion like Rammus or Sejuani or anyone who's building a lot of defenses who are going to build armor or build MR before they build health, they're going to feel a substantial clear speed increase. It's going to be feelable. Sejuani's passive falling off, you will notice a very meaningful drop in the DPS of your pet. Because that is true, because there is a really high-end, nearly abuse case here for essentially Rammus, there is now a cap on monster healing.
Because there's an abuse case for Rammus.
This cap is very generous. You will not run into it unless you are essentially Rammus. Sejuani does not run into it in a conventional build, but very, very late on.
He's basically Rammus might actually be good. Right? That's what he's saying. Rammus might be good.
The game, if you're Shojin, Gorge Rinker, and then another health item on, let's say, Jarvan, he can run to that cap because the health ratio is actually pretty generous. This is actually what it was doing, was giving a pretty generous fighter clear speed buff because these fighters are getting value from health, just like tanks are. They're getting value from attack damage, just like tanks getting value out of their armor. And they're also getting better auto attacks. And so, are tanks not allowed to farm? Because one thing I want to point out is that if you are playing top lane Malphite, you probably don't have prio in your lane. Your wave is going to be slow. You're going to buy Sunfire Gate probably or whatever, but you don't one-shot waves. It takes you longer to clear the waves. However, no matter how fast you clear the wave, the minions still coming in. And if you're going to last hitting, you still get perfect gold per minute. And you literally can't further increase how much XP per minute you get. So it doesn't matter what you're playing. You have equal license to earn gold and XP. It might require more skill, but you have equal license to earn gold and XP. If you're Rammus, you just simply cannot, even if you want to, earn as much gold as other champion. It might be easier, again, for a Kali to farm a wave than Galio. That might not be true. Galio's really good farming waves, but you know my point. But that doesn't make them print more minions. This is true for junglers. So it's actually very important to me to say, hey, I would really like to take an update here to pets, try to normalize the fact that Kha'Zix existing with the current builds literally prints more gold and XP in the jungle than other champions have access to, other roles have access to, and so it is a very light normalization towards everyone is allowed to earn gold, everyone is allowed to use the jungle as a source of income. The fact that pet DPS is the primary factor for pet healing means that indeed champions like Rammus and Sejuani are going to get an increase in healing. Again, that's kind of why the cap is there. The numbers got really absurd in situations where there's a playtest where Rammus is getting 112 health per second from his pet. I'm just sitting here fighting Dragon, and it's I'm out healing Dragon DPS without Ball Curl on. Yeah, this is illegal. There has to be a cap here. So something that I identified from playtesting, but again, I think this is really valuable. The second thing that's happening here with Claire Health is that this is, again, the factor that there's some champions that can just what is sort of illegal and main character syndrome is that for every other role in the game, either their champion has innate sustain, so this is Hecarim W, this is Kha'Zix W, this is anyone with baseline lifesteal, so Neela, or they bought lifesteal. And that is how they heal up in between mini waves, in between skirmishes. The junglers walk into their jungle, clear 3 camps, and more often than not come out full health once they're in the mid game. Because the way that champion healing on live works is that monster camps heal you for a flat amount. That amount is based on champion level, and then that amount can be more than doubled based on missing health, which means if you're at like 50% health, you're still getting a 1.5x base heal, despite the fact that you're reasonably healthy. So you get 1.5x the base heal plus the monster heal per second, and it turns out that pretty much any champ in the game can dip in the jungle for 12 seconds, 2 or 3 camps, come out full health, and it's like,
okay, that's maybe true.
They're
This
always
is
full
a little
health.
bit
They're always
broken.
ready to go for any fight because they're always permanent resources. No, you should have to recall to heal like everyone else does, or invest in some kind of regen. Obviously, there was a push and pull here. Junglers, unlike any other role in the game, must literally take damage in order to earn their sources of gold. And I'm not talking about like, well, the Quinn can harass you in top lane. It's like, no, Hecarim literally has to go be hit by red buff and Gromp and Raptors to earn gold. I'm aware of that, right? And so it's why there's been a lot of care taken into updating the rules here. So now the amount of healing you get when you kill a monster is, the current numbers are 12% of your missing health. In addition, we have lowered the amount of attack damage monsters have in the mid game. Actually, I think it's mid game and late game. Like level 15 plus monsters like don't matter, but essentially the attack damage growth on monsters is much more smooth, and it is definitively lower after your first clear. So your second clear has tankier camps that have less AD. Your camps overall hurt you less. Your pet, if you're not an AD champion, heals you for more. So if you are a slow clear, your pet makes up the difference, but these camps are less lethal. So Kha'Zix, for example, actually can get quite low in the jungle sometimes because he has, pretty poor mitigation tools. But if you are really low, you'll actually get a bigger heal than on live, but you will not be topped off. So it's overall reshaped to say junglers cannot as easily use their jungle to just go back to full health. We're going to more likely clamp you around 75% of your health. It's going to be kind of the end result of these changes. Obviously, if you have some corner lifesteal, you're just off to the races, you're going to full heal up your camps. Green Smite, once you finish the evolve,
can someone dodge, please? I can pay for
so
it.
you're never taking real damage. Green Smite is going to have full health for the whole jungle. That was pretty hard to unwind. I didn't bother trying to re-concept how Green Smite works, though. It is a consideration at some point in time that, again, if we decide, for example, to make Green Smite actually different smites, then we can do something there instead of your pet getting you passive buff, and then we wouldn't have to have that problem. But again, wasn't one of the things that we scoped out for this change. So overall, junglers will tend to have a bit less health
how much
jungle than on live. They will.
I want to know how much he
values
the dodge.
Things like armor and MR, in which case your pet DPS is up, your pet heal per second is up, and you're over gonna have a slightly easier time in your jungle. It's gonna skew a little bit less.
Guys, I'm gonna do it. Go donate in my stream. I will dodge. I will do it. I will do it. For $10, I will dodge. I will have 12-hour downtime, by the way, so this is actually pretty expensive. 5 subs? Yeah, that's fine. 5 subs is the same amount, yeah. Just dodge, I swear I will. Oh my god, now we need to trust him or what? Okay, I'm trusting. I'm naive. Oh my god, he did it. Okay. Okay. Alright, easy money. Easy money.
AT junglers. Okay. Next is a change toward Rift Scuttler. One thing with camp health I forgot to mention is that so every camp in the game is now going to scale smoothly from level 1 to level 11 identically. Regular camps, buff camps, all of them. Buff camps actually going to, I said so the regular camps, Raptors, Wolves, Krugs, are going to gain 5% per level afterwards, which, again, pretty trivial. Buff camps will gain 10% per level to go up to 270% max health level 18. Again, level 18 camps are fake, they don't exist in League of Legends in any practical situation. This actually says that, yeah, by the way, red and blue buff are really, really valuable since we gave every jungler Ivern passive and said at level 11, your jungle, function level 11, it's about the time that the final evolve comes in, so we're going to keep saying level 11 for all this. At level 11, your jungler always gets a copy of red and blue buff, and so does someone else in your team. We have heavily increased the amount of baseline power junglers get by saying they have a 50% uptime red and blue buff. It's never donated away. You always get a copy. And obviously just like the value of red and blue has gone up because we've literally doubled the value of red and blue buff. And so it's like, well, acknowledging that, we should make late game red and blue buff a little bit tankier than they currently are on live. And it's not going to be a very large swing, but it is a small swing to say, look, these camps are more valuable than they were 6 months ago. They should probably be a little bit tankier. And we could have gone harder, but this felt appropriate in playtesting. This is the tuning that we're landing on so far. Okay, so Rift Scuttler. This is a camp that also is, I would say, sort of out of line in terms of actual value. So Rift Scuttler is incredibly, incredibly easy to kill and is a huge source of significant gold and XP towards the jungler. Plus, it puts that vision puddle down, which is pretty high value as well. The Scuttler overall as a camp is overpowered. It actually just is too good for the time investment it requires. Yes, it's in no man's land. It's a little bit dangerous, sure, but like this camp is just too valuable for its difficulty.
Okay.
So we're kind of nerfing Rift Scuttler.
Maybe
so much like we smooth out a lot of other camp health scaling to say they're going to keep.
But that's how you win the game, no? Like you push lanes and then you have control of river and then you get scuttled.
So I forget where the breakpoint is. It might be around like level 10 or 11. I forget exactly. Obviously, like the numbers exist, but I just don't remember off the top of my head where I put the inflection point. Regardless, early game Rift Scuttler. So the first Rift Scuttler game is functionally unchanged. There's like no real difference here. It's a difference of like 2 gold and 1 experience. Like, it doesn't matter. But you will find that Scuttle's going to have a lot more health than it currently does on live. Scuttler scales health way too slow for a camp right now on live. It's going to scale more appropriately like a regular camp. It's going to have like a regular camp's worth of gold, XP, and health at like now all points in time, instead of giving way more gold and XP than other camps for its health. And so it's going to like have the health bar and rewards commensurate with each other, which is functionally a nerf to Scuttler until like level 10ish, and then a buff later on when it's sort of more open.
Okay.
Next thing is a very big set of changes, which is anti-poaching. Okay, so I know throughout a lot of this, it is largely nerfs to the jungler. Some of this stuff is a buff to a certain set of junglers. Here is the first buff to jungling as a role. Anti-poaching. So what's going to happen?
Sounds
so
disgusting.
On live, your jungle item says you do 20% more damage to non-epic monsters. Also, every large monster has 20 armor and MR, which really means you just, essentially, your camps don't have resists. But for regular champions, large camps all have 20 armor and magic resist, which means they take roughly, I'm rounding here, 20% less damage.
Wait.
That rule is changing.
What?
Anti-poaching. So what's going to happen? So currently on live, your jungle item says you do 20% more damage to non-epic monsters. Also, every large monster has 20 armor and MR, which really means you just, essentially, your camps don't have resists.
Okay, I mean, that's not true, right? Because if you build lethality, then you still penetrate that. But he basically means it evens out.
But for
Okay.
regular champions, large camps all have 20 armor and magic resist, which means they take roughly, I'm rounding here, 20% less damage. That rule is changing. Two large camps now have 42 armor and magic resist. Small camps all have 20 armor and magic resist, and your jungle item gives you 42% increased damage to the jungle. What this means is...
Damn! That's insane. Because right now, I think right now, taking jungle camps as a laner is already pretty shit. And with that, it's fucking... You can't take it. Holy shit! You can't take it.
Is nothing has changed for you as a jungler. Your experience of clearing your red buff, your blue buff, your Kha'Zix, your Gromp, nothing has changed for you, including Dragon and Baron, because these rules don't apply to Dragon and Baron. Your clear is going to feel literally identical. Nothing is different here from these stat changes. What will change is like Sork shoes will be slightly less valuable against blue buff, and slightly...
Believe me, top laners will still take your golems.
more valuable against small raptors. If you get a source of percent pen like a Jarvan Q, that's just better than it currently is on live. Wukong Q.
No, if you have lethality, it's better for you because you have more to penetrate. So yeah, this is actually a Jarvan buff. It's a Wukong. It's I think everyone who has more than 20 magic pen or 20 armor pen or like percentage pen, for them it's really good.
A little bit better than it is on live. There's some trading back and forth, right? Serrated Dirk a bit worse against red buff, a bit better against small raptors, whatever, right? There's like
That's not true, is it?
a little bit of trading back and forth, but it's so small it doesn't matter. No one's gonna be a big bounce outlier from this. What this means though is now every camp in the game has 20% more health than it does on live to non-junglers. And that anti-poaching measure is going to multiply with the camp health going up. And by the way, for most junglers, your pet's going to do more damage, which will help compensate for this. But for the other champions, they're not getting this. For the other champions, they're just saying, hey, these camps are 20% tankier from armor and MR, and in some cases, another 10% tankier from more health. So this is a pretty meaningful decrease in the degree to which non-junglers will poach your camps. Now, we can only go so hard here.
Okay, great.
There are some top laners who, right, for split pushing, part of their agency is I side lane, I get cryo, I push, I dip into the jungle, I take Kha'Zix, I take Gromp, I come back, and that is part of how I succeed as a split pusher. So this is not as extreme as it could be. And it's actually why non-buff camps are not buffed as much as buff camps in terms of health, because the like level 14 like side lane Jax case, part of the gameplay pattern is shove and take a camp or shove and poach the enemy camp, and preserving some level that is valuable.
Still
So
a shit ton though.
could, but it means that hey, it's much more likely that the jungler is going to be allowed to get the last set on red buff or blue buff because well, you're just way better at killing it, and so that 80 gold, that 100 experience, that's yours. And so there's light anti-poaching to say your camps as a jungler are going to get more often for you because other people are going to be worse at taking them.
My Orianna will still want blue buff at minute 8. This Ronaldo guy will still demand blue buff at minute 8. Because he lives in season 3.
Which is the other way around. So currently on League of Legends, you gain 40% XP from lane minions. If you have a jungle item, you get 40% XP from lane minions at minute 1. Up until minute 14, we're at 75%.
I mean, that joke works with Feminine as well, yeah.
Of the XP from lane minions, and then the rule goes away. Unless there's a bug, if you finish your jungle item before 14 minutes, you lock in your XP penalty for the rest of the game. So I fixed that bug.
Sorry, what the fuck happened?
But there's also anti-poaching version 2, which is the other way around. So currently on League of Legends, you gain 40% XP from lane minions. If you have a jungle item, you get 40% XP from lane minions at minute 1.
Yes.
Up until minute 14, we're at 75% of the XP
Up until minute 14, we're at 75, and after minute 14, you get the full amount.
Yes.
Yes.
And then the rule goes away. Unless there's a bug, if you finish your jungle item before 14 minutes, you lock in your XP penalty for the rest of the game.
You lock in your XP what?
So I fixed that bug. Unless there's a bug, if you finish your jungle item before 14 minutes, you lock in your XP penalty for the rest of the game.
What? I swear! I had this so many times! I got fucked by this so many times! And I didn't even realize? I was so proud. Yeah, I have my jungle item finished before minute 4, like at 13, 14. Oh my god! And you're punished for that? Now what the fuck?
So I fixed that bug. But I
Yeah, thanks for fixing it!
changed the rules from 40 to 75 by minutes 1 to 14 and say it's going to be 30% to 100% from minute 1 to 20. It's going to be a much longer.
Oh my god, why? But I have apes as teammates. I need to push out sides. I need to push.
Longer smooth scale, and instead of the rule going away.
Oh my god, that's so bad. Bro, the fucking game doesn't revolve around jungle. It revolves around lanes and lane state. Nah, but fuck this shit.
Jumping from 75 to 100 is going to smoothly go and drop when Baron spawns, which is like, hey, we are clearly signaling a different state in the game. And it was going to mean, the way the math works out, by the way, is over the course of time, junglers are going to get 8% less XP from lane minions across the first 20 minutes of the game. Obviously, there's going to be spikes where it's better, spikes where it's worse. Like, exactly 13 minutes in, it's actually slightly better than on live, but smooth scaling, not enough for your jungle item. Again, fix the bug where you got locked into an XP penalty if you, like, really turbo clear your jungle, and get your revolve done really soon. But overall, junglers are going to get 8% less XP from lane minions compared to the live game until 20 minutes in the game. And then the rule is gone, and you can move on from there. So we're, enacting some protections for junglers, but we're also saying, look, I understand by making the jungle a little bit slower, by making the jungle maybe put you out at slightly lower health. You're going to be more incentivized to, like, well, screw clearing the jungle, I'm going to go gank people. Well, your rewards for ganking are going down. And to be clear, if we're like, we're just going to lower kill gold, well, that does a whole lot to nerf everyone else in the game for the sins of jungle being overpowered. And this is a jungle-specific rule that says, okay, junglers, sure, it might be correct for you to push the wave out sometimes and get all this done.
But how boring is jungle? Like, should jungle be? Like, how fucking boring should jungle be? Do they want junglers to be like centered camera, just PvEing, not steal anything, not do anything, just PvE centered camera, not do anything ever, like never ever, not take objectives anymore, just fucking PvE until, I don't know, until minute 20.
But you're not going to print free experience. You're going to get penalized here. If you need to do this, you can, but go back to your jungle. That's where you belong. That's where your protected source of gold and experience is from. And so it is a very light nerf to junglers with the gank. It's junglers holding the wave. And also this means, by the way, if you do get the gank successfully, like, this is one of the things that I've seen complained about most by junglers. I'm not going to say it's a jungle buff, but it's one of the things I've seen complained most about by junglers is the jungler gets a successful gank off. They kill the top, like, congratulations, we did it. We got the wave out of the turret. And the enemy jungler walks over, finishes Gromp, and just, like, soaks up 2 waves and goes, I'm out leveling you now. You might have done a 6 camp and ganked, but I caught 3 waves. I'm actually ahead of you now.
That's not a thing. What are you talking about? That's not a thing anymore. Because they nerfed it to 40%. It was a thing. It's not a thing since they switched it to 40%. If you see me catching a triple wave, I'm gonna be complaining that, oh fuck, this is really bad for us. Because I'm gonna get like half a level, while the enemy top laner got like 1.5 for that.
This goes down by about 8% with this rules change. And so it means that actually
it's already fucking dead, bro. The problem is later on, as soon as like people have scaled, or like out of laning phases, you need to be like kind of push. Like, you need to be able to push lanes. Come on, what is this shit?
The value of your gank, in a way, goes up. Now, again, the early anti-stumbling things means that top laner respawns more quickly and is able to catch their own wave, and so these things do kind of feed each other a little bit here. But it means that, yes, it is a nerf. The overall amount of resources that junglers are going to have is going to be a little bit lower. They're going to be, like, objectively, they're going to be behind, they're going to be lower than they are on live because they're getting objectively less XP from.
Just play Sedirani and don't farm. You know what will happen? People will play tanks. Game is gonna be boring. No one wants to play tanks. They'll rework whole jungle. Assassin's gonna be broke again.
From minions, but their camp's going to be up more often, not poached by their opponents. So it'll be up a little bit more for them, and we'll see what the end result ends up being. I'm not against slightly increasing camp XP over the course of time or whatever to make sure junglers have an appropriate amount of experience in the game, but overall that is the thing. One
back to jungle depression, yes.
There was a rules update. So back in 13 point, was it 15? I forget exactly which patch. we updated the rules on catch-up XP. The rule was that if you were down, and actually if I look new, especially in the script, how catch-up XP works. So catch-up XP, the way it works is it takes the 9 highest level champions in the game, it averages their level, compares it to your level, and then it rounds and says if the difference is at least 2, catch-up XP now exists. And because it rounds, really if the level XP difference is 1.555555, then it rounds. That's the difference. It used to be if the level difference was 1.11111, and now it's 1.555555, right? So 4 more champions have to be a level up on you, an extra level up on you for you to get catch-up XP. That was a measurable nerf to hyper gank non-clear junglers because they're now getting catch-up XP less, they're getting less free experience, they're getting less power. The champions are weaker because they have less power, of course. So the way the minion poaching rule works is that you get less XP unless you meet the exact same rule set. But this was the old rule set. The way that minion poaching is on live is if you are 1.1 levels behind the top 9 champions in the game, you got full XP instead.
Oh.
Now it's, again...
I didn't know. You got full minion XP?
1.5 levels behind the average level in the game. So the the amount of free XP that junglers get for being just slightly behind is going to require you to be farther behind this.
Why are these rules not written anywhere, by the way? Like, this is not something that was known before, right? These XP rules. Yes, it was not known. Right, changing up the entire game next patch? Nah, I think only jungle.
Means that an underperforming jungler will fall farther behind. This means if you are really good at putting an enemy jungler into the dirt, they have fewer ways to catch back up and catch up to your level. Your goal difference is still going to be...
So if you're level 3, and like the whole team and game is level 5, you can actually take a minion wave to have 100% XP. I thought lane XP was always less. Yes, I thought so as well, so I guess there's an exception.
Quite large, but they're going to have fewer ways to catch up to your level. So if you are a really high agency jungler, if
you
are a good jungle diff, player, you can more readily put your opponent into the dirt. That will be true. That is an end result of that change. So the next thing is a bucket towards early gank power. So we discovered pretty quickly we actually can't make the jungle
I feel like he's talking about me.
Because it makes jungling feel bad. That we should find other tactics for junglers are overpowered.
I feel like he's literally talking to me and be like, yeah, you're stomping your enemies too much. So in that case, it feels bad for them. So I will nerf you. This is how it feels.
The jungle suck. Right? Making jungling feel bad, making jungling feel unrewarded, making jungling feel hard is not the best approach considering collateral damage for lowering the power of jungle. The first version of jungle changes was like, I heavily ramped camp health, I heavily ramped camp AD, and it was like, wow, jungling feels like ass, we gotta pick different avenues, so, we did. It's actually why camps have...
I don't like that he's saying I did that, because surely there's like a whole team around him that like discusses with him, that overviews his ideas, takes like philosophy into consideration and game design and like addiction, right? So I'm sure there's like a whole team and he's saying I did that.
And do on live because this ended up being the right choice for all the moving parts here. So this is early gank power is lower. Functionally, all the Doran's items...
It's a way so the community can blame a single person so the people under him don't get attacked. Okay.
Have about 20 more health and 2 more of their core stats, or it's like 3 more AP and 2 more AD, and the support items, because they're cheaper, only have like 15 or 20 health, and they only get 1 or 2 AD or AP. To be fair, once you go into Frostfang, you have live Frostfang, it's not different there anymore anyway. The goal here wasn't to like specifically buff support, or really nerf them either way, but it was just like, this felt like the right amount of power to give for an item that's like relatively cheap. I think supports have plenty of AC over the lane as it stands. Obviously, if your start is Longsword 3-pot, there's no change for you here, so that you might want to buy a Doran's, but essentially the thing is, Doran's have been buffed by about 25% of their stat line. Support items also buff about 25% of their stat line. And Doran's are now unique. You cannot buy 2 Doran's items. You can't buy like Blade plus Ring. You can't buy Ring plus Shield. You can only buy just 1 Doran's item fly. You can't buy 2 Blades. And so what this does, it says, okay, well, essentially, we can't nerf junglers very much in the early game, but we can make laners a bit stronger. We can actually say, well...
But honestly, aren't laners already pretty strong right now? Like, ganking someone level 3, level 4, level 2 is already dead. It's already not a thing anymore. Like, it's only happening if a laner fucked up really hard. And they keep on buffing lane inting.
Well, now, innately, you're going to have a Doran's Blade with 100 health on it, so your baseline burst resistance, your baseline burst resilience is much better, and so you're much less likely to die to that level 4 6 camp gank.
But how about just let people die to that and learn from that? Like, come on.
the power level of non-junglers is much higher. Congratulations, there is, a bit more agency in the hands of the non-junglers in the early game here. And so that is the sort of final.
I mean, if they don't learn, that's
here.
fine. Then they will
Again,
stuck
no
low elo.
mistakes.
That's
The goal
okay.
is to nerf the jungle. There is a very light amount of protectionism here.
Yes, dying is bad. We need to buff laners more.
Clears. And overall, the goal is, again, to make the role weaker. That is the point here, without trying to sour the feel of playing the jungle, which I think we approached reasonably well here. Those are some pretty substantial tools and updates, so you can kind of like tell what your jungle item is doing and whatnot. So, some minor stuff there. But overall, that is the jungle suite. The next and final big thing we're going to talk about here, as we're an hour into the video already, is...
Okay, that's it. I think the biggest point is the jungle EXP nerf, which is insane. And I didn't read this at all until I watched this video. Because that's the biggest part. Like, fuck minion smiting, fuck camp health, fuck everything. If you can't get EXP from minions until minute 20, it's GG, you're fucking useless. You're gonna be a second supporter.
Of protectionism here. There is a very light amount of helping tanks feel better about their subsequent clears. And overall, the goal is, again, to make the role weaker. That is the point here, without trying to sour the feel of playing the jungle, which I think we approached reasonably well here. Those are some pretty substantial tools and updates, so you can kind of like tell what your jungle item is doing and whatnot. So, some minor stuff there. But overall, that is the jungle suite. The next and final big thing we're going to talk about here, as we're an hour into the video already, is the fact that we're doing a K'Zix sort of update here. It's not really official title for it, but a K'Zix anti-pro skew update. This overall task ended up being kind of weird. I ended up doing the final design on it, but I wasn't the first designer on it. It actually ended up changing hands a few times, and as designers moved over to the seasonal pod to do work on the 2024 season, this eventually came to me. Most of the big pieces were already in place. I mostly did tuning around the types of large things that we were doing to the champion. So the way K'Zix is right now is he is an incredibly pro skew champion. Now, he is certainly very high mastery, right? This champion takes, of course, a lot of skill to play. That's totally fine. We accept the fact this champion has a high mastery curve, has a steep mastery curve, it takes a long time to learn. That's totally reasonable. We're not trying to get rid of that. The problem is that his highly optimized gameplay doesn't have counterplay. That if you hyper-optimize K'Zix, it doesn't matter how good your opponents are, your entire combo always lands. And all of the agency is with you. He kind of breaks the rules of acceptable...
Oh yeah, finished the video, but this is K'Zix.
Legends when hyper-optimized. There's just
I
also
don't
a
know
lot
if
of
I care about
weird things just
K'Zix.
I don't think are really working right on the champion, so some things that we're smoothing out and buffing up and trying to make better overall and feel better.
Why rework K'Zix? Why rework K'Zix? It's a fucking year-old champ. Why rework K'Zix? Work on other champs. Work on Shyvana. Work on... I don't fucking know. Maybe Nocturne, honestly. Work on champs that are fucking old and useless. Because he's broken. I mean, then, like, nerf him. If you think he's broken, nerf him. He has been meta for a year. First step is nerf.
Make no mistake, the point
wait,
here
y'all
is to
already
make
got
K'Zix
his rework,
much
bro.
better in the hands of regular players at home, while still making him a high mastery champion, and lower the egregiousness of his top-end combo structure, where there just is no counterplay, there's no room for reaction, no room for parrying, no room for anything. He just has all of the cards. And so it's a mix of those two things at once, of bringing up the bottom end and bringing down the essentially illegal gameplay on the top end, while also trying to preserve K'Zix as a high mastery, somewhat combo-oriented, very skillful champion who cares about gold income, wants a strong side, and be a agile tank, who also transforms from a tank into a skirmisher at various points in time. Okay, so the first thing is like some basic numbers changes. Really easy stuff here. This is...
Okay, I'm sorry I don't care so much about this. I'll just read the summary.
It's gameplay of, can I guess... Flash RW.
me in university. Yeah, I don't care. I will just read the summary. Yeah, that's university meta.
And Q3
yeah, I was skipping through all of this and just reading the notes. Congratulations on the big promotion, Phreak, and thank you for the videos and your communication. It's so important for the press. I do think maybe Phreak is not... He's not a professional. At his, like, I don't want to say he's not a professional. Maybe he's like not experienced, right? He's not experienced. He's just like, he has a lot of ideas and he's just doing it, and maybe it's bad. But I think if he's enthusiastic about it, which I think he is, he has been playing League since fucking season, like, from the start. I think it could be good. He will learn, and I think he will adapt. So even though right now, like, jungle is gonna get gutted to death, and I'm pretty sure no one is gonna play jungle. Like, the jungle role is gonna get played only by like people who are maining it, right? And yeah, I think they will buff it again and change some things up. Probably you can expect jungle rework. I mean, you can expect jungle rework either in preseason, in season 14 start, or season 14 second split. Yeah, it's gonna get rework, I think, season 14 or 14-2.